Not bad for a silver spoon kid. Yo, what is up, everyone? My name is Jack Krause. Welcome back to the episode of Inside the Lines Victory Stop. The Texas Motor Speedway, the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 from the Texas Motor Speedway has just wrapped up, and only in 2020 can a Texas race actually be exciting. Only in 2020, I swear. But yeah, it was. I will say this: it started off horrible, but it escalated very, and I mean very quickly. So we start off with stage one, and before the race, or at least coming to the green flag, Aric Almirola, who started on pole, reported brake issues. Now, we know at a track like Texas is not really that big of a factor, at least on the racetrack, but when coming onto pit road, where brakes is kind of important, that was something to keep an eye on, as well as Chase Elliott, who had to start at the rear due to failing pre-race inspection twice. But even with those brake issues, Aric Almirola, he actually had a really good car this race and would lead up until the competition caution at lap 20. But when the restart took place after that competition caution, his teammate Kevin Harvick, who, like I said in the race day episode, who's been on a roll in NASCAR as of late, he would then take over the race lead. However, while Harvick led the race for 30 or so laps, Almirola was clearly faster than him. I mean, you saw whenever Harvick was on front and Almirola was just right behind him, would get runs but was not able to pass him because of this aero package. But eventually, after 30 laps, Almirola was able to get by Harvick with 50 laps to go until literally 8 laps later, both Harvick and Almirola would then pit for a scheduled pit stop. However, that is when our first little incident takes place. Now, this is coming off of pit road. Aric Almirola blends onto the racetrack much earlier than usual and gets a blend line violation penalty. Now, this is very similar, in fact, the exact same reason as to why Justin Allgaier more than likely may have lost the race in the Xfinity Series, the previous race yesterday, because he blended onto the racetrack way too early. You're supposed to blend, take a look here, you're supposed to blend at least coming off of turn 2, or at least where the dotted lines are. Almirola, as you can see here in this clip, he blended off way too early, nearly in the middle of 1 and 2. So because of that, he got a penalty. Now, why is there a rule in the first place? Well, it's because of an incident like this. 2008 Talladega in the Nationwide Series, Kevin LePage just merges onto the racetrack right in the middle of traffic and causes a horrendous crash that took up a lot of race cars, so that's why this rule is in place. However, we haven't seen NASCAR, at least up until yesterday, really enforce this rule. It was very odd, since now you even had Kyle Busch even asking his crew chief to make sure, you know, what this rule says and where to get, or where to come out of pit road and when to blend onto the racetrack in order to not get a penalty. It was very odd, very weird, but because Kevin Harvick, who was right behind Almirola, came out almost exactly the same place that Almirola came out, but Harvick didn't get a penalty. So it's a rule that I didn't think was really an issue, but it became an issue very quickly, and it was not as consistent because I thought Harvick should have gotten a penalty, because if you look at how Almirola came back on the racetrack and then you look at how Harvick came back on the racetrack, it looks exactly the same. During when pit cycles were taking place out on the racetrack for the lead, Ryan Blaney was out in front with Kyle Busch about 2 seconds behind him, and then William Byron in third, another 8 seconds behind Ryan Blaney. However, the thing is, with Ryan Blaney on 40 lap older tires, was able to put up faster lap times than any other driver. And this is going to be very key, because this shows that tires mean jack all. They don't mean anything. And again, this is going to be very important, because that is the reason why what we saw happen, why this guy went to victory lane. I mean, it was very shocking to say the least, but it set the tone of what can we expect in terms of strategy-wise on what drivers might do in order to get an advantage on their competitors and get a better finish, or with some drivers, even a win. But yeah, Ryan Blaney would win stage 1. Second would be Kyle Busch. Third, Kevin Harvick. Fourth, Tyler Reddick. And William Byron would round out the top 5. Stage 2 takes place. Kyle Busch would take over the race lead on the restart, but then not too long after, our second caution, but our first real caution of the day, and it would involve Jimmy Johnson. Johnson loses the back end off of 4, tries to catch it, but ends up smacking the outside wall hard with the right side. And then, just to add insult to injury, would then be penalized by NASCAR for 2 laps for having too many crew members over the wall while he was under the damaged vehicle policy. And This sucked because Johnson, first of all, Johnson came into Texas with a 24-point gap ahead of Austin Dillon. He had the final spot to enter into the playoffs, so that was very detrimental to his chances of running for a championship. And he had a really good car. Earlier in the race, I think around stage 1, or near the half, I think when the first round of pit stops began, Johnson had a safety violation, I think with the tire going out of his box. He started 37th and was making his way back up into 15th already. I think even to 7th place by the end of stage 1. He finished in 7th spot. So he had a really good car. I thought maybe a top 5 car potentially, but unfortunately with Jimmy, he either has a great car and wrecks or has a bad car and actually finishes races. That seems to be the theme of Johnson's 2020 season. So as a Jimmy fan, this hurt a lot. Then when the restart came out, another JGR driver, Denny Hamlin, he would also have a really good run, and I thought would also be a contender for this race. He took over the race lead on the restart with his teammate Kyle Busch in second and Blaney in third. But then not too long after, Blaney will then take the lead right back from both of the JGR drivers. It showed that Blaney had what I felt like the best car. But once Blaney got the race lead, he just took off. No one was able to get by him, and Blaney will go on to sweep both stages. Logano in second, Hamlin third, Kurt Busch fourth, and Kevin Harvick in fifth. And then we get into stage 3, and stage 3 is where everything just went off the rails. So it started off with the Penske boys of Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney side by side for a bit, but then coming off of turn 4, Blaney and Logano get loose in the middle of 3 and 4, but both catch it. However, then coming to start finish line, Kurt Busch slightly taps the 10 of Almirola, who then hits Kyle Busch, who then hits his teammate Truex to create an accordion effect and causes a massive pileup entering turn 1, collecting Cole Custer, Matt Kenseth, Chris Buescher, and others. It reminded me a lot of the 2010 race. If you guys don't remember that, big one involving Gordon Stewart, I think Carl Edwards and others. That's what it reminded me of, and it was a really pretty big accident. Took out a lot of contenders, including Cole Custer, like I said, who won at Kentucky the previous week. But as a result of that accident, it caused the race to be red flagged. And wow, red flag. Cars are stopped in Texas heat in July is not a good thing. At least when the cars are racing, air is flowing. When you're stopped, and with the cars being sealed to the ground, no air is going, which means you are cooking in that race car. But I will say, I want to point out 2 things. Number 1, if you guys want to be able to come back to the racetrack without worrying about this pandemic, wear a mask. Here's a photo that I took of when the cars were stopped on the front stretch. You just saw loads of fans on top of each other, no social distancing, no masks, just walking around each other. I mean, this is literally a coronavirus's dream. This is like his favorite meal. It's just seeing a bunch of people together, no social distancing, no masks, no nothing like that. Like, I get it. If you don't want to wear a mask when you're sitting down, fine. But when you stand up and you go to the fence, or at least you're going somewhere where you know that there is going to be a bunch of people, wear your mask. It's not that difficult. Sorry if I'm getting bent out of shape, but it was just so annoying. And I was like, when I saw this on television, I was like, I wanted to smack each single one of them in the back of the head. It's like, use common sense. Oh, and another thing, by the way, NASCAR. That Confederate flag ban, what happened to that? Because last week, or Wednesday at Bristol, we saw someone come in with the Confederate flag image on their shirt. And today we saw another one. Here's a picture of that. Credit to Caleb Hoffman, who took that photo. Another guy with a picture of the Confederate flag on his shirt. NASCAR, Steve O'Donnell, what's going on? Like, if you're going to, again, this is typical NASCAR. They make a rule, but they don't enforce it properly. If you're going to make a rule, enforce it properly. You can't just say it. Because, again, it's literally called the rebel flag for a reason. Meaning people are going to come to the racetrack with that flag. And no one's trying to stop it. That's very disappointing. But this is not another video on the flag. This is about the race. So I'm just going to move on. When the restart came back out, we actually saw a really good battle between Hamlin, Keselowski, and Blaney. In fact, for some point in time, for a few laps, Blaney and Keselowski, or Keselowski and Hamlin, I should say, were both side by side for a certain amount of time, with Blaney in the background waiting to pounce. But then after some time, Hamlin would eventually get by Keselowski for the lead. Then the first of many incidents would take place. Ty Dillon gets loose underneath William Byron and spins with the back end and hits the outside wall, with both suffering big time damage. And the reason why this is important is because William Byron came into this race, I believe, with a 30 point cushion, I believe, ahead of the cut line. And at that time, when he got involved in that crash, he only had a 23 point cushion above the cut line. So drivers like Johnson and Byron, who couldn't afford to have bad races, end up having bad races. At least luckily for Jimmy was able to continue on and finish the race, while Byron, he just had too much damage and had to retire from the event. So 78 laps to go, restart comes out, and he had new drivers in the mix, or at least a returning driver in Eric Almirola. He was able to rebound from that penalty, but new drivers like Matt DiBenedetto in 4th or 5th place, Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon were now starting to come into the mix, as well as Bubba Wallace. I just hit my hand on the wood table. Ow. But after some time, Blaney comes on the pit road to begin the final round of pit stops, and he took 4 tires while Denny Hamlin took 2 tires and got a massive gap on Blaney as a result of that. But however, when that happened, Hamlin was reporting loose, like really bad loose, like almost he couldn't control it type of loose. It was that bad. And so now it became the question of, can Blaney and Hamlin work their way back up to the front of the pack? Well, their problems would be sort of solved as a caution will come out with 30 laps to go. Quinn Houff, for some odd reason, some stupid reason, decides to pit right in front of traffic, hits Christopher Bell, hits Matt DiBenedetto before crashing to the outside wall. Pretty big contact. Luckily, he was okay, but like, why? Why are you pitting there? You know there's 2 or 3 cars behind you. Why are you pitting there? I'm either blaming the driver or the spotter. One of them two is 100% at fault, or both are at fault. I don't know, but Starcom, all I'm saying is that Landon Castle would not make that mistake. Justice for Landon. But yeah, when that caution came out, something very interesting would take place on pit road. RCR drivers Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon. Reddick took only fuel, while Dillon only took 2 tires, and both came out 1 and 2. Austin Dillon first, Reddick in second. And this was big because remember, like I said earlier on in this episode, tires mean jack all. So it doesn't make sense to go for 4 tires. Track position is key. It's not like a track like Atlanta or a track like Chicago where tires mean something. No. When a track like Texas, sort of smooth, tires don't mean anything. So I was surprised not more drivers went with the route or went with the direction that Reddick and Dillon took, but RCR drivers came out 1 and 2. However, Blaney and Hamlin, who were leading just a while ago, they restarted 15th and 16th respectively. Austin Dillon would then take the lead away from Tyler Reddick on the back straightaway after that restart, and then you had drivers like Kyle Busch back in the mix. Remember, Kyle Busch was doing lawn mowing on the grass on the front stretch when he was involved in that accident with his teammate Mark Truex Jr. Was able to rebound and have a shot at the win. Like I said, also Bubba Wallace was in the top 10. Some new contenders and some returning contenders now in the mix. It was shaping up to be a really cool battle for this win. And it looked like it was going to be between RCR. They built a pretty good gap between 3rd place and on back. Both Dillon and Reddick was a second, or at least Reddick was a second ahead of Logano. Dillon was 2 seconds ahead of Logano. They had a really big leap ahead of their competitors, but all that will be wiped away when 16 laps ago, Denny Hamlin gets loose underneath Alex Bowman, hits him, and brings out another caution. When the restart came out, after a few laps, it looked like, all right, this is going to be a RCR versus, Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick battle, because Reddick was on Austin Dillon's bumper for a good amount of time. Well, another caution will come out, and it would again involve Denny Hamlin. 6 laps to go, another caution, it would involve Hamlin, who gets loose off of 4 aero loose, with help from the 9-car Chase Elliott and spins. That sets up a 2-lap shootout when Dillon gets a really good run off of 2 and onto the back straightaway, gets away from Reddick and the rest of the field, and Austin Dillon will go on to score his 3rd victory of his career, the first since the 2018 Daytona 500. He goes back to victory lane, and it caps off a very odd and it caps off a very boring, at first, to a very chaotic and crazy and an actually really fun Texas race. And it'd actually be the first time since October of 2011 at Talladega that RCR would finish 1 and 2. The victory at Talladega in October 2011 had Clint Boyer winning the race with Jeff Burton in second. So here's a look at the unofficial results. Austin Dillon, your winner, the 10th different winner this season with Tyler Reddick in 2nd place. Joe Logano in 3rd, Kyle Busch with a nice rebound in 4th spot, and Kevin Harvick rounds out the top 5. Eric Jones, a very quiet day in the 6th spot. Good run for him, in fact, because he needs these points, because he's running below the cut line. He needs more good runs. In fact, he needs even better runs than this if he wants to have a shot at making the playoffs this year. But nonetheless, good run for him. Ryan Blaney in 7th place, Kurt Busch in 8th, Brad Keselowski in 9th, and Eric Almirola rounds out the top 10. Clint Boyer in 11th place, Chase Elliott in 12th, Ryan Newman in 13th, Bubba Wallace in 14th, and 15th is Michael McDowell. So Bubba was still able to get ahead of McDowell. I don't know why. I just wanted to say that. It was a feel-good moment. Yeah, Corla Joy 16th, Matt Benedetto 17th, Matt Kenseth in 18th. He just had a very, very, very off day, finishing in the 18th spot. 19th would be Chris Buescher and Denny Hamlin, who I thought went from a driver that I thought would have a really good shot at winning to just the team just falling apart near the end. He would finish in 20th, one lap down. Other notables like Christopher Bell, who finished 21st. Some other notables, Jimmy Johnson, 26, 12 laps down, but he did gain some really good valuable points. We'll take a look at the playoff standings in just a little bit, but he gained some valuable playoff points that was really needed in order to keep him, or not playoff points, but just points in general. That was very important and needed to keep him in the hunt for the playoffs. Mark Truex Jr., 14 laps down in 29th after being involved in that big crash on the front stretch. Alex Bowman in the 30th spot, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 38th, William Byron 37th, Cole Custer 39th, and Ryan Preece in dead last in the 40th position. So here's a look at the playoff standings with 8 races remaining in the NASCAR regular season. So Denny Hamlin, he's at the top of the board over Kevin Harvick, who now has more playoff points than Cole Custer. You see him and Austin Dillon now, the newly added driver to be locked into the playoffs. 10 drivers now are locked in. Eric Almirola with the highest driver without a win, 109 points above the cut line. The Busch brothers still neck and neck, 12th and 13th respectively. Kurt Busch with 108, Kyle Busch 95, Matt Benedetto in 14th, Clint Bowyer in 15th, and Jimmy Johnson still holds the final spot, but now is just barely 2 points ahead of his Hendrick teammate William Byron. Tyler Reddick gained some valuable points, only 14 points below the cut line. Eric Jones now from 42 to now 24, a huge gain for him. And Bubba Wallace rounds out the top 20, 76 points below the cut line in the 20th spot. So what are my thoughts on this race? Well, like I said, stage 1 was a doozer. In fact, right before stage 2 and 3 began, I actually had the title of this episode laid out to be "Dear Texas Motor Speedway, your track sucks." That was literally going to be the title after stage 1, but now I can't do that. But it was a really fun race. It was really fun. For a Texas race as of late, specifically with this reconfiguration, that was, I think, one of the best Texas races I think I've seen. Even just saying that alone feels weird, leaving my mouth. Texas was a good race. That just even feels weird. Ugh. But it's 2020, so anything can happen. But yeah, it was a really fun race. I don't know, like out of 10, I'd give it a 6. I would have given it a 7, but stage 1 was really just so boring. But yeah, I'd give it. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. 6.5. No, you know what? No, 7 out of 10. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Final answer, 7 out of 10. All right. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. What are you guys' thoughts on this race? Tell me in the comment section down below. The next race will be at the Kansas Speedway Thursday night. That's a very odd time to have the Cup race, but hey, it's not too far away. And I actually really like Kansas, specifically with this package, so it should be a fun one to watch. Again, tell me your guys' thoughts on this race in the comment section down below. But until next time, my name is Jack Cross from MDK, and I'll see you guys next time.